Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Linking the Blocks. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Today we are talking with Marvin, and today's episode is about his story, again, as always, in Web3, and particularly the financial side of Web3, liquidity, venture capital, basically how to run a market-making operation. Market makers are very, very interesting topic in this industry. Not many love them, a lot hate them. Nonetheless, they're essential to the market and what's happening in crypto. Welcome, Marvin. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Eric. How's it going? Thank you for the invite.
Oh, it's all good. A lot of traveling, as you know, and I know you're not much different in that case. How are you? How's your young family?
Yeah, pretty good. Just staying here in Thailand again. There was a recent earthquake like 2 weeks ago, but
Yeah,
everything seems to be okay now. Apart from that building that collapsed. In Chiang Mai,
in
everything
Be-
is good. Yeah.
yeah, I was about to ask, did you hear it did you feel it in the north?
Yeah, we actually felt the aftershocks, but it wasn't as bad as Bangkok or Myanmar.
Yeah, yeah, a big thought goes out to everybody that uh, fell victim to the earthquake, especially in Myanmar. Must have been hit really badly, and the country is already war-torn. It's really a tragedy. Unfortunately, there's not much you hear in Western or general media about it, but there were many casualties, and it was a true tragedy. But yeah, let's talk about the bright side of what we're doing in the crypto space. I had the pleasure
Mhm.
to meet you in person in Chiang Mai, which is your home and also the base of your company, the company you work for, Yellow, which is a market maker,
Mhm.
VC, and does many other things. So you can maybe elaborate a little bit on that later. Um, And
Mhm.
I know you were originally from the Philippines and moved to Thailand a while ago and work in the industry also for a little bit. So as always, would be great if you first could share your own story into Web3 and what fascinated you about it, what interested you about it, what your work is about a little bit, and what your primary
Mhm.
focus is.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that intro. So yeah, just a little bit about me and my journey in Web3. I started working in Web3 in 2018, and it was for a small market making firm before I joined Yellow. This market making firm I joined just doing operations, monitoring bots, monitoring markets. But this company, small company, didn't last. I think it only lasted like a year, less than 2 years. So I moved to Yellow after that, which is when the first bull run started in 2020, or the second basically for Bitcoin when it went past 20K. But yeah, I've been working in Yellow already for almost 5 years now, where I've gained a lot of experience, mainly because Yellow was is a bigger company. It has a lot of different businesses. So I mainly work for Yellow Capital. I help with the operations for Yellow Capital. We mainly VCs, venture capital, as well as liquidity providers in the space. So we're pretty much market makers since 2013. We're led by our founder, Alexis Sergia. who's been in the space, since like the start or ICO of Ethereum. So yeah, I mean, in the last 5 years, or 7 years, it's been mainly focused on market making, been providing liquidity to tokenize projects, and mainly focusing in this area. Yeah.
That's great. So you're living in Chiang Mai also for 5 years, I assume. It's a lovely place.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh,
was born and raised in Philippines, and went to college in the US and somehow ended up in Thailand. I was invited here in Chiang Mai with the first company that I worked with, and I loved it. I loved Chiang Mai. It was a really
yeah,
good place to grow, and to stay for digital nomads, for long term immigrants, I would say.
yeah. Yeah, I always love to go there. It's very relaxing, it's not overcrowded. Sure, it's a bit touristy, but not overly so, not like Bali, where basically you can't use the roads anymore. Okay, but that's a little sidetrack. Maybe I'm just a bit nostalgic and need a little bit of a break. Let's talk about market making. What is that? Well, I mean, everybody hears it all
Mhm,
the time, but I would argue that a lot of the audience and a lot of people in crypto don't really know what a market maker
mhm,
does. So maybe, pardon me. So maybe
mhm.
you can run us a little bit through your operations and what does it mean to be a market maker, to provide liquidity and so on and so forth.
Mhm. Yeah, good question. So when it comes to being a market maker, I think there are different types of market makers out there. Um, but simply put, market makers' job is to provide liquidity for a certain asset or a certain market, where they will be creating or making orders um, on the order book to make the asset more tradable. So the main job of the market maker is really to provide that liquidity for any particular asset. So to be specific, for Yellow Capital, our operations are mainly geared towards tokenized projects. So our main clients are projects who have their own token. And being that they're new tokens, there's always going to be price discovery when they first launch on the market. These projects will always need help when it comes to starting off their markets. They will need the liquidity provision for sure, mainly because it's a new token.
Understand? So basically, what you do is you help a token to have the necessary liquidity at the start and have the right amount of orders and understand a little bit where the natural price levels
Mhm,
are and also tune the journey to there a little bit and don't make it too abrupt and too much of a shock. If I would put it
mhm,
into simple terms, that's what I would understand from what you just said. Um, what happens if you wouldn't be there? Let's say I
mhm.
just put my project on an exchange, I put some liquidity behind it and just let it rip, so to speak. So
Mhm.
what would happen then?
Well, apart from providing liquidity, right, market makers provide stability in terms of the price, right? So without a market maker, you'll see a lot more volatility in the price. There might be some difficulty in trading for people who want to buy or sell larger amounts of the token. And basically, if the depth or the liquidity of the market will also impact the investors' outlook, right? On how they see your project, if it's heavily traded, if there's a lot of depth in the order books. So it all revolves around liquidity. Basically, the market maker's job is to make an asset liquid. It means to make the asset to be easily bought or sold in the market without much effect in price. Um, so this part is really, needed in a lot of markets, mainly to provide stability, to provide market confidence for the investors, and to increase adoption. Right, easier trading encourages more people to trade, and it becomes a snowball effect after that.
Yeah, I think that's something that's often very, very underestimated, the trust in the project. And even though people might be happy for a little bit, if it 20x's in half an hour, it will
Mhm.
also crash down very quickly. And you're in a situation where trading becomes almost impossible or more like a lottery. And
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, that
Yep.
makes absolute sense. How do you
It goes.
act? Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
I mean, it goes both ways. If a token, for example, does go 20x, it may also mean that they lack the sufficient amount of depth, right? That they went 20x with just
Yeah,
a
exactly.
small
Mm.
amount. So this is the part where even on a positive movement, market makers really do provide that stability where if the market will move upward, then with enough depth, you'll make sure that there's enough support, price or
Yeah.
buy movement on the market to sustain that new level instead of just
Mm.
being out of the blue volatile movement upwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So in essence, you'd allow it to go up if there's enough volume and if there is a meaning behind the step up,
Correct.
right? So it's not just a random two people bought and there's so little volume that it just spikes.
Hmm. Exactly.
I think I think that's a way to put it. Um, so there we see that it is very essential, especially in the early days of a project. Um, Leads me a little bit to the question: how would you see the life cycle, or not the life cycle? Hopefully, the coin exists for a very long time, but the lifetime
Hmm.
um, support, or how would you keep on supporting a project over time that works with you, even if
Hmm.
it grows and there is enough natural liquidity on the market? Yeah, how do you work with projects over a longer span of time?
In the long term, really, it's all about just providing that support. There's also a part where we help projects build treasury. This treasury building is part of the market making process where if, for example, the market does keep on going up, then we will have net positive USDT because the market making bot will, mainly be selling tokens. So part of this, goes into helping the project build their treasury. And yeah, in the long term, I would say that liquidity is always needed, especially when projects tend to upgrade in terms of exchanges, right? So even if the project is already a few years old, it can always be listed on a new exchange to target new demographic, new audience.
Yeah.
In this regard, market makers can also help bootstrap this new market for them and provide that stability there. Um, but yeah, for me, I think for the project, it's all about building utility for their token, building a good, stable tokenomics that can be sustainable in the long term. That's really the key and for projects to be playing in the long game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what I've seen often on the market is that projects try to start being listed on the big tier one exchanges, Binance and so on, without having a proper plan. And like mostly they wouldn't succeed anyways, but if they happen to succeed for whatever other reasons, and they are not properly positioned and get delisted, it becomes so much harder to get back on that exchange. So I think so a stepped approach would make more sense, and that sounds like what you're describing in terms of longer term support for the project. In terms
Yeah,
of,
absolutely.
no, go ahead.
I've seen a lot of projects that, rely a lot on the hype and they want to launch big. But again, this hype is just short term, and without a proper plan to sustain this, it will
Yeah.
eventually die down, and it will just become hard for the project to be listed on a big exchange, because these big exchanges can have such large requirements for the projects as well. Getting delisted on any exchange is actually very hard for a lot of projects to come back from, especially when it's a tier one, tier two exchange. Mhm. Eric, are you there?
Oh, I was muted. My apologies. I kept on talking. I'm so sorry. I had to mute myself because I have a little bit of a problem with my voice today, and I had to drink something. No, I was saying that's exactly what I was alluding to in terms of listing on tier ones, and it reminded me of something I heard the other week when I was in Bangkok for Southeast Asia Blockchain Week. Even though it got canceled due to the earthquake as well, I still had to go because we had a big partnership announcement there. And I attended another side event which also was taking place, and there was a gentleman. I forgot his name. I forgot who it was particularly. But he was talking about building a longer term sustainable project in crypto and blockchain. And even though he said a lot of things I do not agree with necessarily, he said something that really resonated with me. And that was 99% of projects think TGE is the peak of their achievement. They work towards TGE, token generation event, for those that are not aware. So basically your coin minting event and coin release. Build a hype, work with KOLs and all that to achieve as much success as possible at that point. But if you don't build sustainability into the project for a longer term period and have a plan how to keep it up afterwards and how to keep the coin interesting, may that be through proper utility, may that be, if you're a meme coin, to keeping up interesting concepts or whatever it is. I'm not a meme coin expert, so forgive me if I'm talking gibberish on that front. But yeah, if you don't do that, the situation you just described will happen. You suddenly fall, you lose all the metrics that you had to achieve to be listed on a big exchange. You get delisted, and it can really quickly kill a project. And therefore, that shows you that a good partner that actually helps you keep that stability is quite important. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about, now that I also mentioned it, token launch and strategy around it. What's your biggest red flag? What do you think is the biggest sign this project will fail at TGE and will never recover? Or will not make it over the next year, let's say. So I know you talked to a lot of projects, and they come to you, and I'm sure there are some where you'd say, okay, if I look at this, this is no way we can get involved. Would be interesting to see what are the biggest red flags, and what is it that people should avoid before they come to talk to you.
I would say I would look closely at the tokenomics, the white paper of any project. This is where any investor should start. Red flags can easily be spotted with a project with a lack of utility, I would say.
Mm,
Excuse me. With a lack of
no
utility,
worries.
and in the white paper, you'll also be able to see the tokenomics, right? So in the tokenomics, you'll um, be able to get an idea of how the tokens will be distributed, how people will be incentivized, and you just make sure that it aligns with the project goals and encourages community building. Um,
Mm,
so a lot of things can be seen already from the white paper and tokenomics. When I see a project that is trying to raise a lot of funds and giving a lot of discounts, this can be a red flag, mainly because these projects are going to have a hard time sustaining the markets when they launch in the market, right? They're basically selling their pre-selling their tokens at a very low rate, where their investors are going to be heavily incentivized, to be the first ones to sell when you launch, and
yeah.
this puts a heavy selling pressure on the market, on TGE. Red flags for me would also be like projects that spend a lot of money. I would say on conferences, on parties, spending money on building hype instead of doing marketing in a proper way, right? For me, it's always best to focus on marketing, not just to build hype, but to build a community where you can engage in. Um,
Mm,
so it can be a lot more sustainable. So we look at mainly four things before we work with any project, or before we even invest in any project. First, we look at the white paper tokenomics of the project. Make sure that they have a good utility, um, good long-term vision for their project. Second, we look at their team, to see if the team members have relevant experience in the space, if they've launched projects in the past, and also as sort of like a KYC for their team. Third will be their marketing plans. What is their long-term, short-term marketing plans? How will they engage the community? How will they kind of grow their brand to a global scale? Fourth would be their fundraising team. So there are also a lot of projects who plan to launch but been stuck, been raising funds for X amount of years already. There are two things to this, mainly because the market has also been kind of like slower in terms of the investments in the past year. But second is that majority of these projects, mm, I think, basically lack proper utility, um, and they lack this sort of like real use case for people to even be interested in investing. So their investment team also would say a lot about their projects to see how how people are perceiving or willing, how many people are even willing to invest in their project. So these four things would already be good, I would say, criterias for anyone to look at.
Yeah, I think the community part, that's really the one thing that sticks out in terms of token launch, and building a community, as you say. I think that is sustainable, not necessarily huge. I mean, obviously it shouldn't be tiny, but a lot of community, and I say that, I know I'm keep on repeating myself. I see so many projects that have huge numbers, but there's no interaction, right? And these people arguably would not be interested in investing in the token as well if they don't care about the
Hmm.
project. At least that's my perspective on it. Yeah, thanks for the insights. That was really helpful, and hopefully also for some of our community members that are themselves involved in projects and look to what to particular look at before they approach not only market maker but also VCs.
Hmm.
Maybe another aspect of what we can talk about. You're also a venture capital company, a little bit of a specialized one as it comes together with your market making activities, and obviously you would like your portfolio companies to make use of those services as well, as I understand it. But maybe you can also talk a little bit about that side of your activities and how you identify interesting projects to support, how you would support them beyond just
Hmm.
the monetary aspect. Yeah, maybe you can allude a little bit to your experience on that part of your activities and how you handle that, and if that is different to how you would look into companies that are interesting for the market making side purely.
Well, the investment for us is just kind of like getting our skin into the game. Market making is basically our core business with Yellow Capital. We've been doing market making for over 10 years already. So this is mainly our expertise. We do help projects with advisory. We have a lot of experience with guiding projects into building a more sustainable tokenomics. And we can also bridge the gap to them when it comes to getting listed on exchanges. We do help projects, align with their budget, with their goals, and give them a proper roadmap on which exchanges are best to list at and where to grow from there. So this is, I think, apart from market making, is also like one of the best things that we do to help projects.
Yeah. So how is it operating a company like that? What's your experience? What are your personal main challenges in keeping things going and keeping things running properly and smoothly? I mean, I have a bit of an idea of the side of the function of a market maker as a project. I know why I would need one. I know the interaction and so on and so forth. But um, what do you personally think is your biggest challenge running the operations of a company like that?
I think the operations part for us is pretty stable already. We've developed our own bots through the years, so the operations part have been stable. I think the hard part, the challenge really in this business is for us to look for good technology, right? Good projects to partner with, mainly because there's anytime we partner with a project, there's going to be a lot at stake, not only our reputation, but also our investment. And our business revolves around partnering with the right projects. We want to be partnering with projects that will be here for the long term. It doesn't necessarily have to be big or hyped up. As long as they have a good use case, we're always willing to play the long-term game with the
Yeah,
projects. And the challenge really is, finding a good team that you can trust to be building for the long term and not just, exit when they start to become successful, I would say. So there are a
yeah.
lot of factors, but I think, yeah, that as long as we find, we partner with committed teams, then everything else, we can just tackle together. Yeah.
Brings me a little bit to another situation that's interesting. Like in our case, for example, building a layer one and building a protocol that, according to our tokenomics, I think that's a part of the tokenomics that's fairly new that you guys haven't seen yet. Would love to get your feedback on that part as well. It's not
Mm-hmm.
necessary for TGE, but it's more about long-term decentralization of the project because we now understand better how our node structure will be and so on. So over time, the team will basically hand the project over to yeah, the group of node operators, stakers, and so on and so forth. So there will be a decentralization effect as a blockchain. As a project progresses in that form, how is your interaction with projects? I don't know if you worked with projects similar over a longer time yet, so I can't guarantee that you have an answer for it, but I'd be interested to hear how you would interact with a project that over time then more moves into a DAO structure in terms of decision making than you interact with a team directly.
Mm, excellent question. We have long-term projects that we've worked with for, I would say, more than 5 years already, but they're not structured as a DAO. So in this case, it might be a bit different. But I think it really depends. I mean, the DAO, basically the community still makes decisions, right? So as long as we can get decisions from the community, from the decision makers, then market makers will always be able to help execute these decisions that they make, when it comes to what to do with the market.
Thanks for the answer. Yeah, I'm also it's a topic that's on the top of my mind for a little bit in terms of how we structured this as well. Um, as you can think, it's something you need to define relatively early because otherwise if you do it wrong, you might lose control and it's not properly handed over to a new structure and then uh, chaos ensues. So
Hmm.
thanks for your thought on that as well. Um, in general, maybe for those builders out there and the guys that hopefully build on our chain soon, we also have a hackathon out, maybe a little info to those that applied to it. We have been going through it. It was extremely tough because there was a bunch of really strong applications. Last 16 are selected. You'll know who you are soon. And we'll send requests for a little video call out soon to evaluate the last 5 to 10 projects that we're going to select to be in to really start building once our DevNet is out. But along those lines, for the builders out there, if they start looking into an amazing idea they want to build in Web3 and they realize, okay, we need a token because we do have utility. And on the other hand, I don't know if you work with meme coins at all. But let's say you have a strong idea for a meme coin and a strong narrative. Again, I'm not an expert. I couldn't say much about what that means. But basically, what are the things that you would recommend a newly baked founder, an entrepreneur that wants to build a Web3 project? What are the main things you would tell them or give them on the way to primarily focus on what are musts, what are the do's, what are the don'ts, maybe a few ideas from your perspective to be ready for really their TGE, going to market, being C ready as well. Maybe you can say a few words about that to everyone out there that is just entering the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of like advice for builders or future Web3 founders, I'd say to focus on your long-term vision, focus on creating sustainable projects that offer real value, rather than just, I'd say relying on hype. Focus on building your community, prioritize community engagement and feedback, make sure to engage continuously, have a long-term, plan to engage your community, and also make sure to put a focus on compliance. When it comes to fundraising or operating a business, especially in the Web3, um, compliance can go a very long way in terms of having a long-term vision or being able to operate in a long-term space. So yeah, I think just focusing on these three things would help any project survive and eventually thrive in this space. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice. I can agree with that wholeheartedly. I think those are very, very important aspects. Um, After you raised some funds, and you, yeah, had your TGE, everything's on a good way, what would be your advice for those at that stage? Um, what to keep in mind, what to focus on once your token is actually on the market and is part of what you're doing as well? Yeah, what would you say for those stages then after you successful TGE and you want to go into probably not cruise control because you still want to build your protocol and you still want to make it better on a daily basis. But what would be your suggestions for people that are in that stage of their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think for me, TGE really, as you mentioned earlier, it shouldn't really be the most hyped event, right? It's just basically when the tokens are generated, it's when they're available to public. So in terms of the project, if they have really long-term vision, the TGE is just a very small part in all of that. So they always, need to have a roadmap to follow. A TGE is just, the first dot in that roadmap. And as long as they stay focused towards following, their milestones, hitting their milestones, and keeping their community engaged, then they would have an easier market to take care of. Another advice would, of course, be to engage with market makers continuously. You can have multiple market makers in this regard, but just to make sure that there are always buy and sell orders available on exchanges. That can help bring that stability in the markets and encourage more trading activity.
Awesome. We are nearing the 40 minutes mark, or we at the 40 minutes mark. I think we can open the floor to a few questions if that's okay for you. I know we also have a little bit of an announcement before we go there to the community. There will be a set of new activities and quests out there for the next few weeks, which are pretty exciting, leading towards the release of our DevNet, where we really encourage everyone to build a little bit on. There will be a low code and no code environment to create AI agents that you can test out. Obviously, it's DevNet, so it's not the final thing, but it's pretty exciting already for you to create something, and I can't wait to get your feedback. But yeah, there will be a set of quests that will also hold your hand a little bit and guiding you towards what it will be. There will be a lot more engagement also from our side and from our partners. A lot of exciting announcements. There will be a panel discussion moderated by Luke, our community manager, that most of you probably know very well, and a bunch of other things. Maybe Luke, you can give a little bit more of an explanation about it. And yeah, let's get going with some questions, I'd say, if that's all right for you, Marvin.
Yeah, I would be happy to answer any questions if I can.
So I have one here, actually from Luke. What's your opinion on a low FTV, high float topic that's been quite prominent for a while? Would be interesting to hear that as well. It's been a bit of a theme over the last few months after we saw a lot of high FTV, low float projects for a while, predominantly. Um, and do we see a new meta take? Oh, super sorry, I have a little bit of technical. Oh, there we go again. A new meta take off soon. A new approach to it. Maybe also if you can explain real quick before you answer the question what low FTV means and high float or the opposite of it. Yeah, good questions. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, excellent questions. So yeah, FDV refers to the fully diluted value of a project. This is used mainly when it comes to raising funds. So for example, a project is raising 10% of their tokens, let's say 10 million FDV, then they would basically be raising $1 million. And the float, I think here pertains to the circulating amount of tokens that will be
Yeah, correct.
distributed on TGE. So there are a lot of projects with low FDV with high float, and I think it this really depends a lot on other factors as well. When it comes to the number of circulating tokens on TGE, you need to take a look at where these tokens are going to be coming from. Are they going to be from investors mainly? Are they going to be airdropped? Are they going to be released for the project itself? When it comes to these investors, then you take a look at the prices in which the investors were able to enter, and this gives you a good idea of the selling pressure that will be on TGE. Um, so this is a way for us to kind of get a good idea of the selling pressure at TGE, and then we take a look at the buying pressure, right? So the buying pressure refers
Mm,
to the demand of the token, and this is where you kind of estimate, selling versus buy pressure to get a good um, estimate on the outlook, right, on TGE. And yeah, I think it really depends on what prices the investors were to enter. If they were to, let's say, like double their investment on TGE, then that would be scary, even if there's only a low float.
mm.
Uh, so there are a lot of other details that I would look at apart from the FDV and the float, for me to get a better, like, give better advice, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for your answer. One question from Prof. How do you balance organic liquidity and artificial volume? How do you know the difference? Thanks, Prof. Also, a really good question. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, it's a very good question. Well, market makers technically are not supposed to do wash trading, right? So um,
Mm,
that's the first thing that we need to get rid of. So if market makers don't do the artificial volume or wash trading, then how do we determine the organic volume on the market? Um, and I would say that the organic volume on the market can be determined by how active our bots are. So our bots, or at least for market makers, they would always set their bots to have very low spreads on the order book. So let's say the price of a token is at $1. The market maker would basically be selling at 1.001 and buying at 0.999. Um,
mm,
and this essentially makes the market maker most of the time the best bid or the best ask in the order book. And this order pretty much replenishes, right? When it gets taken, the market making bot will add another order very close to the spread. Um, or if the price changes, then it will just update the price. But in this regard, if the market is active, then it would continuously trade with our market making bot, thus giving us a good idea of how much organic volume there is on the market.
Super interesting. I hope that answers your question, Prof. I do think so. From it answered the question that I had, which was probably similar. Thanks for asking it. I didn't, and I should have. Another question from our other Luke in our community. How does market making work for something like Hyperliquid? I don't know if you're familiar how they do it. I guess it's more of an automated market maker, but I'm not familiar with how they do it. So if you have an
Mhm.
idea, give it a shot.
Yeah, I don't have much experience with Hyperliquid, but I think the idea with that is that market makers actually get rewarded to provide liquidity there. And they just have to meet certain requirements to be part of, to be able to get these rewards. And the market
Hmm.
maker's job there, apart from providing liquidity, is to basically just break even in the market. And they can
Hmm.
still get the net positive from these rewards. I think they call it like mining or something. Yeah.
Thanks for the answer. I hope it helps you a little bit, Luke. Um, Probably need to do some more research of your own on Hyperliquid to be sure what all that means and how it works. Um, from Azzy, do you use any proprietary trading algorithms? And is AI at all involved in what you do?
Yeah, very good question. We currently use our own trading technology that we developed ourselves, but we're always open to looking at other trading bots. So for example, a good trading bot is Hummingbot. It's an open source trading bot that people can use to easily deploy market making strategies. So Hummingbot is a third party open source software that we can adapt to our tech as well. And when it comes to AI, this is very new, but this is something that we've also been, already adapting. Just, there's a wide range of uses that AI can do. Currently, we've already integrated it with our data to make it easier for us to query, for example. Instead of trying to find the root data of any certain market or bot that you want to look at, you can just ask kind of like an AI assistant to get that data for you, which simplifies a lot of the operations part on our end, and also makes it easier for our clients to get the data that they need as well.
Super interesting. Thanks for your answer. And if you're still, I know we are already 6 minutes over time, but if you're okay, then I would have one last question here. From Extraordinary Emmanuel, an extraordinary question. What are the plans after TGE to ensure the project continues to thrive and people don't dump the project at the expense of the utility or long-term building of the project? Bit similar to what we asked already before, but especially the avoidance of dumpiness,
Mhm.
for lack of better words. Yeah, maybe you can say a word or two about that.
Yeah, I'd say apart from the things that we already mentioned earlier, providing continuous market making, engaging the community, diversifying exchanges, I would say I would say really just focusing on long-term goals. In this scenario, hype is actually not always the best thing. You don't always have to grow big, right? If you focus on the utility of your token and grow organically, I think that's really the best way. Um, and yeah, just continuously hit
Mm,
your roadmap. Make sure you follow your roadmap and engage your community. And yeah, just play the long term game. I think market conditions will definitely take into effect as well. But um, yeah, I think in general, as long as you stay true to your technology and to what you promised in your project, then things would not be hard. Yeah.
mm. My team just tells me that might have been a question for me. It's a bit unclear from the way it's framed, but in our particular case, if it is directed to us, and I mean, it can't hurt to mention that in any ways. I mean, first we are layer one, so our long-term perspective and the usage of our token, the buy pressure of our token depends a lot on people using our blockchain. So the long-term strategy is to keep it as attractive as possible as a tool to use for you to build on. And obviously to build a strong ecosystem as we're already starting, as you guys know best, probably from all our activities
Mhm.
of protocols that built on our tech that use those agents, those truly chain agnostic agents and truly on-chain agents that are truly your ownership, right? You don't have to rely on the open AIs of the world that might just pull the plug on your AI agent because they decide that they don't allow you to use their API anymore or whatever. On the other hand, and it's the more technical aspect, as you know, we have also really amazing interoperability cross-chain technology. So just using our tech to make best use of the blockchain ecosystem out there and interact between different chains. Our token, our blockchain will have to be used and the token will have to be used, even if it's just for you to move information or move software from point A to point B. So that's basically how our project evolves and what we're doing evolves around. Also, our tokenomics is designed in a way that people can dump everything instantly after TGE, but I truly believe it's not even the major driver for us in terms of, I mean, you guys might or might not be familiar. There are certain so-called vesting schedules, so token won't release instantly. Your airdrop that eventually may or may not come. Disclaimer, our TGE rewards, they will broadly be not vested, except for maybe KRLs and so on. But generally, there are these things in place for investors to make sure investors are long-term committed and really interested in the project. And obviously, in my honest opinion, it's all about, as Marvin also alluded to, building, keeping it interesting, have the community and the ecosystem engaged. And if the product isn't good and people don't use it, eventually the token won't have buy pressure. And as we have an amazing product, I'm very sure that will be different for us. I hope that answers the question from our side a little bit. If it was directed at us, already a lot of amazing insights from Marvin. Thanks a lot for taking the time and thanks a lot for hanging around almost 15 minutes longer than originally planned. I know your time is very valuable and precious. Um, I thank all of you for being here. Luke, do you want to say a word or two about Atlas Activate? Then feel free to just activate yourself and do so. Otherwise, from my side, thanks a lot for everybody showing up. Thanks a lot to you, Marvin. Hope to see you again soon. And wish you a lot of luck and happiness in your private situation right now. Um, I know there's a lot happening, and we see each other again in a few weeks. I would have to ask Sumtai what the next guest is. As always, my brain is not really doing the job properly, and at what day exactly it happens, but we will announce it. Don't worry. And Marvin, this will be on YouTube in a few days. I assume you're okay with that, and the team already informed you. The regular question to that regard. Um, yeah, thanks a lot to everyone.
Turf.
Luke, do you want? There you go.
Yeah, I knew it. I'm probably very loud, so I apologize for that, and I'll talk quietly. But yes, Atlas Activate, our quest is coming up tomorrow, and yes, the podcasts, and there's going to be some really cool announcement about some stuff coming up on X. So yeah, stay tuned for all of that. It will go live tomorrow. Be ready for it. Just a little teaser for all of the loyal community members that stay tuning in. So yeah, good stuff. Fun times ahead.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
David,
think
Marvin. Yeah,
yeah, I'd
go ahead.
like to thank you, Eric, for inviting me over as a guest, and for Sante who helped organize all this. Yeah, thank you for tuning in, everyone. And yeah, it was very wonderful to participate here.
It was amazing to have you, man. Have a wonderful day, everyone. See you soon to the next episode of Linking the Blogs, and have a wonderful time until then. Bye bye.